All right, good afternoon, everybody. I just want to address these claims that somehow the parties changed and they flipped and they switched, and all of a sudden the racist Democrats became the anti-racists, and the anti-racist Republicans, they became the racists. And as I said in the video before, I'm willing to accept that the Democrats changed, but this nonsense, this lie that now the Republicans, they became the racists, that I'm not willing to accept. I'm willing to meet halfway. However, just because I'm willing to accept it doesn't mean it's true. The truth is, really, the parties never changed. And so we have two different commentators, one who just made a blanket statement. The parties changed. The Democrats today are not the Democrats of 1850. What is he basing that on? Obviously, things change. Obviously, society changes. But that doesn't mean that the core and the spirit of the Democrat Party ever changed. And it also doesn't mean that the core and the spirit of the Republican Party ever changed. So there's a few issues to address here. And then the other issue was the question, which is related to this, that another viewer who's a frequent commentator mentioned about this issue of, is welfare, do I consider the welfare system to be akin to the slavery system? Now, obviously, there is a place in America for a safety net for people who are genuinely in need. But the way that the system is operated is quite a nefarious way. I'm not against necessarily the idea of a welfare system, but it certainly needs to be reformed in a manner that doesn't make people dependent on it, doesn't lead people to rather be on welfare than work when they're able to work, or on unemployment, which is happening right now, where people are making more money being on unemployment than they would if they were working. And so even when the opportunities to work come back, people are not interested in that. And then what does that lead to? What's the vicious cycle that's involved there? But before we get to that, we have to establish, what do I mean that the parties didn't change? Now, I genuinely believe that the Democrats believe themselves today, the modern day Democrats believe themselves today to be anti-racist. I don't think that they are consciously racist, but I think that subconsciously and in the ideology of the party, there is a nefarious underbelly of racism that has not been excised from the Democrat Party. And the fact of the matter is, it's unnerving to me that the Democrat Party remained with this name. I compare it to, let's say, if after World War II, the Nazis would say, we're still going to keep the name Nazis, but we are anti-racist, and the people who fought against us, they are the real racists now. That is what happened with the Democrat Party. To maintain, they should have started a whole new party after the Civil War. I understand why historically that didn't happen. Part of that was because Lincoln was trying to unite the country, and so he picked Johnson as his running mate, specifically picking a Southern Democrat for the purpose of reuniting the Union. And I understand the lofty ideals that President Lincoln had there in picking Johnson as his running mate in his second term, which subsequently led to, upon President Lincoln's assassination, Johnson becoming the 17th president of the United States. And the unique situation that you had a running mate of a different party, which there were other times when you had a vice president of a different party. That was because early on, under our constitutional republic, the vice president would be whoever came in second place in the presidential election, which in a certain sense might make more sense as far as representing the country and giving people a voice on one hand, but on the other hand, if you want to have them work together and so forth, it didn't really work out. So that's the situation that we're in now. Where we're talking about the change in the parties. And this claim that somehow all the racists became Republicans. Now, historically, we can prove that that's not true. That the racists became Republicans, that certainly is not true. Because all of those people remain Democrats. All the people who are the KKK people and so forth remained Democrats. There was maybe one who joined the Republican Party. Now, it's not to say there are no racists in the Republican Party, but for the most part, they get booted out pretty quickly. I mean, we saw even what happened with Congressman King. Made a statement that was, to say the least, controversial, and now he lost his primary, so he won't be coming back next year. But the fact of the matter is there are a lot of other issues that are involved here. Now let's look at history and let's look at today's Democratic Party. All right, so you're going to say, well, they're not looking up to Millard Fillmore, or James Buchanan or something like that. All right. But who are they looking up to? Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson is a big hero to the modern day progressive left. Although in the old days there were progressives both in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, he is the epitome of the progressive Democrat and the grandfather of today's progressive Democrats. And all of the progressive Democrats since Wilson have been his spiritual heirs, whether it be FDR, whether it be LBJ, whether it be Barack Obama. They are all the spiritual grandchildren, let's say, and children of Woodrow Wilson, politically speaking. And Woodrow Wilson was very, very clearly a racist. He resurrected the KKK from out of the ashes. Brought back segregation, which there were many strides to rid the country of segregation. Wilson brought it back. All right, but then people say, well, Wilson was a Southerner. He was from Virginia. But FDR was a New Yorker, and he was a progressive who wasn't a racist. Also not true. We see what he did in turning Americans of Japanese ancestry or of Japanese origin. There was a story where he went to visit the king of Saudi Arabia, and he wrote about what a hoot it was. He said it was quite a hoot. That was the word he used. No, he didn't see it anyway in a negative sense. He saw it pretty much as something cute, something quaint, that the king of Saudi Arabia had African slaves. No comment on how despicable slavery is. Why? Because, again, like Wilson, FDR was from that old-fashioned type of Democrat. We could go further. LBJ, who signed into legislation the civil rights laws, people seem to forget that those laws were passed by a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate with very little Democrat support. And LBJ, a Southern Democrat from Texas, when he signed this into law, he said this will have those N-words. He used the N-word. He didn't say N-word like we do now. Voting Democrat for the next 100 years. And again, LBJ is held up as this bastion of progressivism. And so it continues to today, the racism. For example, the progressive left, for the most part, supports racial segregation and racial favoritism. Racism isn't just white against black. Racism is the idea that we have different races and they should be treated differently. Just today, there was a case in, I believe it was the University of California. It was some university in California. There was a professor, I believe he had a Jewish-sounding name. He might be Jewish, I don't know, or at least of Jewish heritage. And this professor was asked to allow, in this particular course where the whole grade was based on your final exam, he was asked to either eliminate the final exam for black students or give some kind of a favoritism with the grade, something to, because of what happened and the stress that black students were experiencing because of the lynching of George Floyd, and I don't mind to call it lynching, and the lynching took place in a Democrat city. And all lynchings have all been done by Democrats. And to this day. And he's called racist for not wanting to show racial favoritism. And that's not racist. And there are 20,000 signatures calling for this man to be fired because he doesn't want to engage in racism. And they're calling him racist because he doesn't want to be engaged in racism. When they've polled Democrats and progressives and other leftists as far as beliefs as to whether or not college dormitories should be segregated by race, they are in support of that. And their thinking is not to hold the black man down, but to lift him up. But again, the general Republican ideology is quite simply that we're all human beings. We're all made in the image of God. If you're Jewish or Christian or Muslim, I don't think Muslims have that terminology in their tradition, but still, it's part of that greater Abrahamic tradition that human life is valuable and individual human life has value. It's not to negate the value of the collective, but there's an extreme collectivism of the left that is involved with this ideology of what we call identity politics, putting people into demographic groups. And it's a kind of a divide and conquer idea. And yes, I would agree that most of these people, not all of them, you have some of the old Democrats. Hillary Clinton is well known, and Bill Clinton were both very well known as in their private life using racial epithets and just putting on a show, which often their show demonstrates their real racist ideas. When Hillary Clinton speaks to a black audience, she starts talking with this weird southern drawl that she doesn't yet, and Al Gore does the same thing. The same thing we see, Joe Biden right now saying, oh, if you have an issue choosing between me or Trump, you ain't black. Now, why did he use the word ain't? Does he use that all the time? Or is he pandering? Is he showing his racism? Is he his subconscious racism. Oh, another snapper. Ooh, I want to make sure this girl really, is probably what it is. Oh, there's so many snapping turtles out today. Should we pull over and help the snapping turtle? Should we turn around and help the snapping turtle? Maybe let's see. Maybe even take a video of the snapping turtle. I love helping turtles. Snapping turtles are dangerous, though. Don't have my gloves. That's the second live snapping turtle I saw today, although it might have been the same one I saw earlier, and then I saw a dead one. Anyway, I think it's on the edge of the road and it's facing. The Indian chief told me, he's from the Turtle Clan, that I'm saying the Indian chief, the Native American chief who works with me at the prison. He told me whatever way the turtles are facing, that's the way they're heading. So if you want to help them cross the street, you put them in that direction. But this turtle is big enough, I don't think anyone's going to hit it. And it should be approaching. This is the time of year when they're laying their eggs. But I was contemplating helping this girl out. We'll see. All right, I'm not turning around now. It's too late now. We just hope that God should protect this lovely creature. They live for a long time. Anyway, let's go back to this discussion. You know, this idea that the Democrat Party kind of feels that they own the black community. That Joe Biden could say you ain't black if you don't vote Democrat. It's kind of a ownership idea. You know, it goes back to the old slavery ways. And the thing is that Barack Obama actually wrote about this and admitted to this, that the inner cities are today's plantations. The inner cities, all run by Democrats, are today's plantations. And in a sense, you know, these you know, the projects and everything, they're the new slave quarters. They are the same old. There's nothing new under the sun. You know, people getting stuck in and it's not only black people, it's white people also. Also, the idea of welfare in a certain sense is enslaving to the taxpayer. You know, it's forcing somebody, you know, their property to go to something, you know, it's taking away one's rights. But in a certain sense, in the democratic society, we can elect to do such things to help, to have that safety net, to help the unfortunate. But this systematic, and it's a problem in my community also, that so many, and I was on programs like this, you know, years ago, pretty much throughout the Obama administration. I was on food stamps, I was on Medicaid, I was even on Section 8, I was on WIC, my family was on WIC, and I did whatever I could to get out of that. Meaning sometimes I was driving 100 miles each way to a job where I'm making $18 an hour to have an extra part-time job, holding down 3 or 4 part-time jobs, plus having a small business, essentially a side hustle, and just to try to make ends meet. And yeah, I would have gotten more. I was losing money by working, but that, first of all, I was doing something I enjoyed. I was a chaplain in a nursing home. I was working for a Hamish person. And this whole idea of I didn't want to be taking more than I had to. And really the truth was, was with traveling 100 miles each way and so forth, I was losing money. Both, I was losing more than I would have working than I would have gotten, not working. But it was that dignity of work. And a lot of people in my community, it's not an ideology of that they want to be on these programs. It's that, you have big families, and that's the law. And it's helpful, but, again, you don't, it's not in that same sense the way people, become, dependent on that. Where I've heard of people of all races, this is not a issue of black people being enslaved. This is a general idea of slavery. It's not racially based, although a lot of people in minority communities are stuck into this vicious cycle where if you make a little bit more money, you're going to lose all these benefits. And you're, especially when it comes to Section 8, things like, there's this fear of making a little bit too much money. And so people are stuck in a dilemma and they don't know what to do. I often said, when I was on these programs, because I was making, $30,000 a year, sometimes less, as a college grad, because Obama intentionally destroyed the economy to intentionally get as many people onto these programs so they'd be dependent and enslaved to the Democratic Party. I recognize that if I were to make $50,000 a year, I'd have to make $80,000 a year just to make up what I lost from making $50,000 a year. And that's how these programs are designed, to enslave people. It's nefarious. It's insidious. And it's slavery. It hurts more than it helps. And the truth is, right now, I'm making close to $80,000 between my full-time job and part-time job and the side hustle. Although now I can't work my part-time job the whole day at all. Well, I share it with my wife. My wife does 2/3 of it, but I'm not able to do my third of it because of these impositions, the coronavirus, quote unquote, restrictions, which, at least in my institutions where I work, I understand the need for that, but I'm losing, but God is blessing me, thank God. It seems like whatever I would have made working that one more day a week, making it up with doing a lot of these weddings, Kanai Nahara, Zoom weddings, which is really cool that you can just perform a wedding on Zoom. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly what to do, and it's jarring and it's unpleasant, and I understand, but we got so much going on. I don't know, So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. But the point is that, but what about the claim that the Republicans, they're the racists, though, right? No. The Republicans are not the racists. Is that a turtle? I can't tell. I think they're more Pennsylvania turtles. Now I'm back in New York. But I see them in New York, too. I saw them by my house all the time by the lake. So, when it comes to this issue of the are the Republicans racist? Again, the answer is no. Who has done more for the African American community? Really, probably since Lincoln. Which president has done more to help the black community is President Trump. Because he's not trying to help. You see, that's the difference. The Democrats, they focus on helping particular communities. Whereas the Republicans look at the individual and just want to help everybody equally. So that means that the people who are focused on helping everybody are going to help everybody. And so the black community has benefited much more from Donald Trump than anyone. And of course, that's why the Democrats are so scared, because they see themselves losing this power. Because Donald Trump is a guy from New York City. He doesn't care if you're white or black. He doesn't care if you identify as straight or gay or this or that, all these things. He cares about help. He loves his country and he wants to help the people. He wants to help these inner cities get out of the poverty. He wants to help people get back to work. He wants to clean up the cities. And he does want to help the black people by actually helping them help themselves. Because he is not a racist like the Democrats who think, oh, these poor black people, they can't fend for themselves. We need to help them. We need to be, this great white savior to help these poor black people. Donald Trump recognizes that these are people made in the image of God. They're equal to him, and he wants to give those who made mistakes a second chance. Listen to his speech at a graduation ceremony from a prison education program. And I've been to graduation ceremonies in prison education programs. I've seen people have second chances. I've spoken at these programs. And the evil of accusing Donald Trump of being racist cannot be understated. And the evil of calling him an anti-Semite could not be understated. His own daughter is Jewish. So that's just it. I hope I explained well enough. Now then people are going to ask, well, why then do you have these alt-right white nationalists support Trump? Hasn't he emboldened them? Now, first of all, there were leaders of the KKK who supported Hillary Clinton, particularly because Donald Trump's daughter is Jewish. And this whole idea, which you don't hear about anymore, of the alt-right, what is the alt-right? The alt-right is the alternative to the right. It's really a left-wing movement. It's about big government. It's about identity politics. They're pro-abortion. Again, abortion is a big, big proof of the racist nature of the Democrats today, because it's essentially about lynching black babies in the womb. And people are going to say, oh, but Judaism is not against abortion the way that the Catholic Church is against abortion. Well, shkoyach. Thank you. I know that. I know that Catholics believe, although I don't know how many follow this, that if the mother's life is in danger, you let her die. And Jews believe that you're not allowed to let the mother die unless the baby is starting to be born. So therefore, what they call the partial birth abortion is prohibited. And abortion, in this rare case of saving the mother's life, is mandated in Judaism. How often does that happen? How many abortions that happen in America today are specifically to save the mother's life? You want to take a little bit more liberal, and I say liberal, not leftist view, that there's a chance that the woman's going to commit suicide. Mental health is a real issue. I agree. All right, but still, how many abortions that are conducted are for that? And how many today are really just a form of birth control? So, these are things to have in mind. But why is this being pushed? Why is this a sacrament, really, in the left? It's almost like sacrifice. It's like a human sacrifice system. It's sacrifice to Moloch. But also it's lynching in the womb. That's, because in New York City for years now, a black unborn baby is more likely to be aborted than born. And you're telling me all of those are cases where the mother's life is in danger? No. It's because the Democrats want to lynch black people. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. I mean, they had people call the Planned Parenthood and say, could I specifically donate for the specific case of black abortions? And they said, yes, of course. Because again, they see it as social justice, they see it as helping people, but they don't understand the roots of that. Of Marilyn Sanger being a racist, a eugenicist. So these are things to have in mind. So this is why I'm saying now I'll agree this is subconscious. People are not actively thinking, oh, I want to, they're not thinking that they hate black people. I don't think that that's the case of the Democrat Party. I don't think anybody hates black people in America today, with the exception of a small amount of wackos, people who are mentally ill, other things like that. But I do think that there is this systemic racism of the left that people don't recognize what it means, what's the, that they're unconsciously, subconsciously racist, and that's why the system. And it's not about restoring some kind of restorative justice of reparations that's going to solve that. What's going to solve that is looking at all people as equals, made in the image of God. And a big reason why things have been so bad is because religion and God have been taken out of the system. Oh, people are going to say, oh, but there was racism in the church, and there was racism, this and that. All right. That's part of history. That's true. But that doesn't mean that religion can't be the answer, All right. Well, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. We'll see you all later. Take care.